Let's bring in our political panel. Former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum, who's also a Newsmax contributor, and Robert Patillo. He is a Democratic strategist. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Welcome. Well, what did you think of night 3 at the DNC? We'll start with you, Mr. Santorum. And what do you expect tonight, especially with Kamala Harris, who is expected to formally accept the Democratic nod for president?
What I've seen is a lot, as you mentioned, a lot of platitudes and very hardcore criticism of Donald Trump. I think the Democrats wisely are trying to make this race, turn this race away from the Biden record, from the Harris record, turn it away from their candidate. They haven't done a particularly good job defining her or defining Tim Walz. I mean, he gave a very short speech last night, other than that he's a coach. We really don't know much. He certainly didn't get in much as to his policies in Minnesota, other than a few of the sort of the liberal things. Where the government did a whole bunch of things for people, but as far as looking at the economy of Minnesota, what's happened under his watch, none of that. No real great extolling of his virtues as a leader under the George Floyd riots. I mean, all of this has just sort of been papered over, all the bad records of these folks, and they talk about sort of these platitudes of they're going to make things better and hope and all this hearkening back to Obama and criticism of Trump. So good on them for trying to drive that message. I don't know how effective it's been. I think in the end, what's going to be the big deal is Kamala Harris's speech tonight and how well she communicates, not just what she says, but how America feels about her. And we'll see whether she's on at 11:30 at night, like they did with President Biden. Maybe she'll get more of a primetime spot, and we'll see how the folks in America respond to it.
Sure.
So, Robert, what's your take on tonight's finale?
I think it's morning in America again. I think that what we're seeing is that after 8 years of the politics of division and destruction, everything's terrible, everyone's dying, the nation is in decline. America needs a breath of fresh air, and that's what we're seeing from the Democratic Party. And Kamala Harris is going to land the plane tonight, and I think we're going to see the American people rallying around. We talk about a convention bump. This might be a convention rocket ship. Elon might have to fly to Chicago for what we're going to see after tonight. And I agree with Senator Santorum. Democrats have too deep of a bench. This is why Barack Obama was speaking at 11 o'clock at night. Joe Biden was speaking at 11 o'clock at night. Tim Walz was speaking at 11 o'clock at night. We might have to start the convention at noon today so that we can get all of these great speakers in, because what the Democrats can do is something Republicans can't. They can reach 50 years into the past and bring in speakers like Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, Bill Clinton. They can also reach 20 years into the future, bring in AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and these young voices, and hand off a baton directly between generations to show that this nation stands together. Compare that to the Republican convention, where you don't have the Romneys, you don't have the Bushes, you don't have the Reagans, you don't have anything that connects the party together. It's a iconoclastic party around one individual, and what the American people want is hope and an opportunity and some joy in our politics, and that's what we're seeing going forward.
You know what? It sounds like you had a great breakfast today, Robert. I hope you didn't have the maggots that they were serving. Go ahead.
Well, Rick, let me
Great
ask
source
you,
of protein.
please respond to what Robert just laid out there for us.
Well, I mean, it's a good example of what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to convince you that Harris and Biden haven't been the president and vice president for the last 4 years. I mean, you just said we've had 8 years of division. Well, 4 of those years were they were in charge, and there's really no mention of the Biden record other than things are great. But the polls are very clear. Americans don't think they're great. You just saw numbers come out yesterday that there are almost 1 million less jobs created this year than the Biden administration has been touting. That you can believe your lying eyes. That in fact things in the economy aren't as good. Things at the border are not good. Biden can say, "Oh, well, things are down this month." Well, it's 120 degrees at the border. Of course, things are going to be down. People aren't crossing when it's that hot. It's not because of Biden's policy. It's because of the weather. The fact of the matter is, the gas prices are up, egg prices are up. All these things are happening. And you see Democrats sort of gaslighting the American public, saying, no, that's not happening. Things were horrible because of Trump, and Trump is really the bad guy here. And we need hope and change from Democratic leadership, which is amazing.
You know, the thing is, before we pivot, I just want to clarify my previous comment regarding maggots. Democratic Party spokesperson Sam Barloga said that there were multiple law enforcement sources saying that maggots were brought into the hotel by activists and somehow commingled with the DNC's breakfast for delegates. And we hope that no one became ill or had to receive emergency care. Pivoting, let's talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's going to announce tomorrow that he's throwing the towel in his bid for the White House, and he's going to back, potentially, Donald Trump. What's your take on that, Robert? That might be a blow to all the joy that you were talking about coming out of the DNC.
Yes, everybody's worried. Here comes the new bumper sticker. Dead bear cubs for Trump. Brain maggots for Trump. I mean, what exactly is Robert Kennedy bringing to the table here? Let's be real. Robert Kennedy was running as strong of a campaign. He wouldn't be dropping out. And what we can also look at is at the DNC last night, not only were we able to connect back to the Bidens and the Clintons, you had Kennedys on stage. We're talking about we're going back nearly 100 years in American politics and drawing these things together. You have the Carter family on stage, Jimmy Carter being 100 years old, saying that he wants to live long enough to be able to vote for Kamala Harris coming up in the next 8 weeks or so when early voting starts. What the Democrats are doing is not worrying about these ideas of the past. Everything that the Republicans are running on is about going backwards, about things used to be great, how we're in decline. You see the Democratic Party is about moving forward, about this vision for the American future, about a new American century where we're standing stronger, where we are eye to eye with the peers of the rest of the world and in a leadership role. We're not contracting within our borders. We are expanding out and bringing this American standard of living to the globe. When you have a party that believes in the future the way that the Democratic Party does, when you have people that come together and are about happiness and economic growth and spreading opportunity and showing an America that looks like the true America, that's what we see from the Democratic Party during their convention, as opposed to, as I said, the despotic hellscape that Republicans seem to believe that they live in and that the American people want to hear about. Nobody wants to wake up the first thing they want to hear President Trump complaining, and that's what former President Obama
Robert,
talked about.
I'm going to put you, Robert, down for $6 gas.
If not 8 or 9 like in California. Robert, let me ask you real quick. What does price fixing, how does that help economic growth in the country?
Oh, it's not price fixing. If you go to McDonald's right now, you can get a hash brown for $4. Hold on, we're going to run out of time. Because look, you go to McDonald's right now and you get a hash brown for $4. If you go across the street to Taco Bell, you can get that exact same hash brown for $1. If you go down the street to the grocery store, you get that exact same hash brown for 10 cents. So are we saying that somehow the McDonald's hash brown is worth 50 times more than the grocery store one? No, what we're saying is those corporations are jacking up those prices artificially to make back the profits they lost during COVID.
Let's get the senator in here.
Let me give you the economic policy behind it.
You responded twice. Let's get the senator in here because he represents Pennsylvania, and I think he's going to have a different take on everything that you're saying right now. Senator?
Well, as far as price gouging and putting price controls in, and that he seems to be arguing that the corporations are gouging. Interesting enough, her recommendation was to put the price gouging not on McDonald's, but on the grocery store that you just said was charging 10 cents. Why do they charge 10 cents? Because their margins at the grocery store are 2% or less. And in fact, during inflationary times, their margins actually go down because they don't raise prices as much as inflation goes on because they don't want to create sticker shock to their customers. And so their profits over the last couple of years during inflation actually went down. And Harris's plan is not to go after McDonald's. It's to go after the grocery store that's selling the hash brown at 10 cents. Why? Because they have a problem with people going to the grocery store and seeing prices driven up by policies of this administration. They see people who are renting housing or buying a home, seeing sky high interest rates caused by Joe Biden's inflationary policy. And what is their response? The response to high prices at the grocery store, go after corporations who are trying to deal with their problems. Their problem with pricing, with high rent and high cost of housing, is to pump $25,000 more per person into the house. I mean, this is an insane. Even the Washington Post and others have said all you're going to do if you give someone everybody $25,000 more to buy a house, you're going to increase all the prices of houses by 25,000. Everybody knows that they're getting 25,000. They just build it into the cost. It's more inflationary. They have no answers to fix their problems by doing something that's going to help the actual private economy. What they try to do is convince people through government handouts that they care about them. Government handouts does not solve the problem. It creates more of a problem. What they need to do is to change the regulatory environment, to change the tax environment, to change the jawboning that comes out of the White House to actually create more economic growth in this country, something that they are incapable of doing.
Handouts and saying the word joy over and over again, right? And she called it price gauging because it was spelled wrong in the monitor.
Well, that shows you that she really doesn't know about policy and about the economy. Right. So Robert, what do you expect from Kamala Harris's economic plan? Because the thing is, she's talking about raising capital gains tax to 44.6%, and then placing a 25% tax on unrealized gains. That's actually stealing wealth.
Look, how many tax cuts do Republicans need? We still haven't paid for the $2 trillion. No, hold on. We haven't paid for the $2 trillion tax cut that Trump put in office. Talking about handouts, we had $8 trillion in government handouts that went directly to the deficit and debt under Trump. We still haven't paid for the Bush tax cut from 20 years ago. We haven't paid for the Reagan tax cuts from the 1980s. And all we hear from Republicans, campaign cycle after campaign cycle, is, well, if you get rid of all regulations, if you get rid of all taxes, then everything will trickle down to the American people. What Kamala Harris's plan is, and that the corporations that are making billions of dollars, we have no less than 3 billionaires who are building magical spaceships right now because they have so much money they don't know what to do with it. And she's released those individuals to pay their fair share of taxes so that we can finance what is going on in the rest of the world. If you look at Western Europe, if you look at the standard of living those people have,
what's the fair share tax? What is it? What percent
exists in the rest of the organized world? American people don't have that. We don't.
What's the percentage their fair share?
Okay, can you actually stop reading from your screen or your talking points and answer the senator's?
Because I know things. Because I remember
answer the senator's question.
I know the facts. I answered the questions. The point is that the American people believe that the billionaire class should not get a free ride on the backs of lunch ladies, on the backs of bus drivers.
What's the fair share?
On the people building this equality.
Yeah, what's the fair share?
And the fair share, as Warren Buffett has articulated, is that the billionaire should not pay less taxes than his secretary. I think that's something American people
okay, so do you realize that the Independent Tax Foundation actually did a analysis of what, quote, the top 40 billionaires in this country pay, and do you realize that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have said it's 8%? That is absolutely patently false. The reality is it's somewhere in the area of 24%. Now, you may say, well, it should be 26%. But the reality is that high-income people do pay taxes. And in fact, they pay a lot of taxes. If you look at the top 5% of Americans, they pay almost 70% of the tax burden in this country. Should they pay more? Should they pay 80%? Should they pay 90%? This is where all this rhetoric is not backed up by reality. You can go out there and talk, they should pay their fair share, and they're not paying their fair share. They're paying 70% of the taxes already. The fact is, the bottom 50% of American taxpayers don't pay any federal taxes. And so the idea, well, we're going to give tax cuts well, you're not cutting, they're not paying federal taxes. And in fact, Trump and his policies actually did give tax cuts to even folks who weren't paying taxes by giving them tax credits so they could use that were refundable. In other words, they're not refunded right now. A lot of the tax policy is you can only deduct credits for the amount of income taxes you pay. But actually, under Trump and others, they're saying no. We'll let you deduct and get credits even if you don't pay federal income tax. How much more are we going to do of that? Is that what you're suggesting? That we just need to transfer wealth and that the government should be the great redistributor?
We only have 30 seconds. Robert, respond.
Yeah, well, I see that the Republican Party, under this veneer of Trumpism, is still the party of Mitt Romney, still the party of the 47% don't contribute to this nation, still the party of corporations or people too, my friends, still the party that the billionaires just simply need to trickle down the money to everybody else. That's why the DNC is the way that we see it right now, because the American people believe they need an opportunity, they need a fair shake, they need an America that is built from the bottom up and from the middle out, not from the top down. And this is why we're seeing this reckoning coming to America, where they are standing up for a brighter future filled with joy not just with billionaires getting more tax cuts.
Thank you, Robert, for your long-winded, but didn't say much of anything in terms of policy. But we thank you for joining us on First Edition. And Senator Rick Santorum, we always thank you for joining us as well.